All right, guys, today we are going to talk a little bit about how to make the AFTRBurner engine compile on your machine. So, assuming we already have the engine cloned, we will have a folder called Repos. Inside of our repos, we have a folder called aburn. All right, inside of aburn is where you have cloned the engine repository. Here we can see the .git folder right here indicating that this is indeed the repository for the engine. If we want to verify that, we can go into the .config or the .git folder and look at the config, and we can see that it points right at the engine repository. All right. Now we can also verify that if we close this guy out, inside of user, we have again the next Git repo. All right, and this one is for the user land, which contains all of the modules. So the first thing that we need to have is, in order to double click this build MSVC 2019, we need to have CMake installed. Because if we look, CMake right here is the first line of this bat file. Okay, so all this bat file basically does is it launches CMake and says we want to use Microsoft Visual Studio 2019 with the x64 architecture. In the source folder containing the CMake lists.txt is located in the source AFTRBurner engine, and then the build files that will be created will be the C Win64 folder. All right, and then optionally, this line can be commented out, but it will just start a CMake GUI so we can see all the checkbox options. So the first thing we have to do is we go to CMake and we download CMake. All right, so I have downloaded CMake and double-click the exe. The installer is right here. When we run through the installer, we want to ensure that we add CMake to the system path for all users. If we do not have CMake added to the system path, when we run this bat file, CMake.exe will not be found in the path, and it will not launch properly when we double-click that bat file. Therefore, we will add it to the path. So we click Next, and we will run through this process. All right, we have finished the installation of CMake. We can now close this wizard. And it is also important to note that any command windows that we had open during that install need to be closed and reopened in order for the new path to be active. So in either case, now that we have CMake installed, I want to double-click this bat, and one indicator that everything is working properly is, as we expected from that bat file, the C Win64 folder will be created. So if I have this script open, we can see that we expect a C Win64 folder to be created. And again, it's going to look for the CMake lists file inside of source after. So if we look right here, it is literally going to look inside of this file. And this file is just a CMake script that lets us configure how we want to build the engine. More on that later. So let us run this bat file. This is where CMake is searching for the installed compiler. We have installed the latest version of Visual Studio 2019 Community Edition, which is a free download from Microsoft. And we have seen now that we have found all of our options. We can click Configure. When we click Configure, the output of this window right here shows that we were able to find the packages that we were looking for. So for example, here we can see that we found Boost, in the way that we found boost was the environment has a variable named boost root, which points at our latest version of boost. Boost include dir, which points to where the boost include directories are located. And in fact, if I open up a little browser right here and look, you can see there's a folder called boost, and inside of this is where all of the header files are. So when you say #include boost / ASIO, this is literally where it's looking on your hard drive, and we were able to find that because we have an environment variable called boost include dir. And in fact, if we look in the system environment variables right here, we can see we have boost include dir, boost library dir, and boost root. In another video, we will show how we can update this boost environment to point to a new version of boost that we download from the internet. Looking through the rest of the output, we can see that we found a whole bunch of boost. We found SDL. SDL is important for a keyboard and mouse input. Here, we found SDL image after some searching, but we can see right here that it found it. We found GDAL, which is some geospatial things that let us load things like elevation and satellite imagery. ASIMP is the asset importer, which lets us parse maybe 10 to 20 different 3D file formats, such as .3ds, .blend, .fbo, .max, other various formats. Free type 2 is for some fonts. And then these are other directories that CMake found that are useful for compiling and building the engine. So we can now click on the generate button. What the generate button does is it will actually create this AFTRBurner solution file. So just for fun, if I delete these things right here, except I need to keep my cache to make my point on this. If I click generate, I deleted them while I wanted to do. I shouldn't have done that. Okay, let me hit generate again. There we go. We'll hit generate again, and you can see it regenerated the solution files. All right. So at this point, I can either double click the solution file, or I can click open project, which will just open the solution file. Here, I'll just click open. I can close CMake now, and Visual Studio 2019 will open. All right, and if we look over here in the Solution Explorer, we can see that in the AFTRBurner engine, we have our source files and our header files. All right, if we want to now compile the engine, I can go build, batch build, and then when this opens up, I will choose to install the debug and the min-size rel. If you're familiar with CMake or building things on Linux with auto tools, you know that you can generally say make, then make install. Okay, that install is the build target. The install will take the compiled library that the engine compiles to, which will be called afterburner.lib, and copy it into the engine's user directory where you can link it against various modules that you develop using the engine. So if I click build right here, it will start compiling the engine. Now at this point, when it compiles the engine, it is using the current version of Boost, SDL, GDAL, ASIMP, all of those libraries that we found in CMake. Those are the versions that are being compiled into and linked against what is being compiled right here. All right, and one way to validate that we are building things properly is inside of this user folder right here, there will be a folder called lib32 and lib64. And there will also be a folder in the include-dir called AFTR. All right, and what will be happening here is every time we successfully compile the engine, the latest compilation of all the header files, as well as all the libraries that were compiled, will be copied into aburn user. All right, the include files will go into the include folder called AFTR, and the libraries will go into a folder called lib64 if we are building the 64-bit versions, or lib32 if we are building the 32-bit versions. In this case, we are building the 64-bit versions, so we will see the folder lib64. All right. Here we can also note that we are compiling using all of the cores on our machine. So you can see right here on this laptop, I have a Xeon with 12 cores, or well, 12 hyper-threaded, 12 logical processors, 6 cores. And we are done compiling. We have just finished compiling right here the release version. And now we are beginning to compile the debug version. All right. As soon as both of these versions complete their compilation, the install script at the end of this will run. It will copy into the aburn user folder. All right. So after this finishes, we will see that happen. And then we will be able to validate, indeed, we successfully compiled the engine. And we had to have CMake installed. We had to have Boost installed. And those are pretty much the two biggies. But we did have to have our Boost environment set, and we did have to ensure that CMake was in the path. All right, we can see the install script running right here, and we now see that we have our lib64 folder, and inside of our lib64 folder, we have our AFTRBurner Engine.lib, which is the release lib, and the AFTRBurner Engine _debug, which is the debug version. We can see that for every lib that we use, there is both a release and a debug version. The debug version helps us step through various when we're running a module, we can step into these debug libraries. What's important to note, though, is the debug is 182 megs, while the release is only 40 megs. So you can see the release doesn't have as many debug symbols. In fact, it has no debug symbols. So we have our lib64 folder, and inside of the include, we now have a folder called AFTR, and inside of AFTR are all of the header files that you need for the engine. And at this point, we have successfully installed CMake and compiled the engine. Again, as the summary, we needed to have Boost installed, have our environment variables for Boost set, and also have CMake installed. All right. I think that'll wrap it up for this video.